Bonjour. Hello. I'm François Taddei. I have the privilege to, I wouldn't say moderate this session, but facilitate and enhance the conversation we're going to have. It's going to be an amazing conversation because we are going to talk about the future of learners, the futures of teachers, the futures of university, the future of caring for oneself, others, and the planet. And that starts by learning to be able to do these things at every age. But what's amazing is that we'll have one of the youngest speakers ever in Change Now on stage in 1 minute. And he has an amazing ability to convey his message of hope. We are living in a period of eco-anxiety, and we need to counterbalance this with hope. And I think, the best sources of hope is going to be on stage in 1 minute. I think for me is what I will like to call a planetisan. A planetisan is a citizen of the planet, able to be responsible and caring for oneself, others, and the planet. And you will hear him is embodying those values. And what's interesting is that, he's not a citizen, not even in his own country, because he's too young. Okay? Women have not been citizens for very long in most countries, but children are no citizens in any country. But yet he's already a planetisan because he wants to make a difference for the future. And I think we need to nurture this culture of hope and engagement, and he's fighting for the future, he's fighting for children's rights. Why don't we listen to them? And is very aligned with the values that the UN wants to promote. To give you an example, I was last September at the General Assembly of the UN for the Transforming Education Summit, first time that youths were heard on what they want for the future of schools. And interestingly, Secretary General said there is 4 ways of listening to the youth. The first one is to ignore them. The second is to pretend to listen. The third one is to dialogue with them, and the fourth is to co-construct the future. So I will now invite Francisco on stage because you will see why you would want to construct the future with him. Thank you so much.
First, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be today. And my name is Francisco. I'm 13 years old, and I'm environmental and climate activist. I'm from Colombia, and when I was 9 years, I started an environmental and climate movement belong by children and young people that who wants change the world, like as this event, no? And before of all, I have to say that I want to speak in English because I'm in learning process. I will be speaking in Spanish, but with the help of my dear friend Jimena. So I become to speak in Spanish, and thank you so much. Hacemos para acá.
And then, thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.
Video?
Ok. Actualmente estamos sufriendo los efectos de muchísimas crisis y de muchísimos problemas, desde la crisis climática hasta las guerras, las pandemias y muchas más crisis.
We're currently living lots of crises, not only the climate crisis, but also pandemic crisis and social crisis.
Todas estas crisis, todos estos problemas tienen una característica común, una característica que los une, y es que amenazan a la vida en todas sus manifestaciones.
They all have a common characteristic, and it's that they threaten life in all of its manifestations.
Y esto es un problema que tiene consecuencias en muchísimos aspectos. Es decir, la crisis climática, como crisis del no futuro, no es solamente una crisis ambiental o relacionada con la diferencia de temperatura. Es también una crisis de derechos humanos, una crisis económica, de educación y de muchos más aspectos.
climate crisis is not only a climate crisis, but it's also a crisis of no future. It also affects humans and the social surroundings.
Es finalmente nuestra supervivencia la que se está jugando y la que pues está amenazando la crisis climática, nuestra supervivencia, nuestro bienestar, y no solo la crisis climática, sino toda una crisis planetaria que tiene distintos ejes: el clima, la pérdida de biodiversidad y la contaminación o polución, y muchos otros ejes más.
This is also threatening our survival, and this is why this is a crisis of well-being. It's a planetary crisis, and it's not only, I already said, on climate, but it also threatens biodiversity and humans.
Y pues frente a esta situación no nos podemos quedar de brazos cruzados, inactivos. Debemos empezar a tomar acción y hacer cambios en distintos aspectos, y entre ellos uno de los más importantes para mí, que es la educación y una educación que debe ser crítica, que debe tener en cuenta la ciudadanía de las personas y de los estudiantes y el medio ambiente.
So, faced to this, we cannot stay inactive. We have to do something, and for me, the most important thing should be education, a critical education. Every education should be critical to prepare us to tackle these risks.
Y para entender el rol de la educación, la importancia de la educación, yo lo resumiría en una frase: la educación es como el hilo conductor de nuestra sociedad. Es como la semilla de nuestra sociedad, y nuestra sociedad se desarrolla se desarrolla como tal a partir de cómo su educación esté planteada.
So, to understand the role of education, we should see it as the seed of our society, and everything comes from it, and in the way society develops itself come from that education. Don't forget the video.
Ok. Y en esa importancia de la educación tampoco hay que olvidar lo importante que es pensar global, tener una educación que piense global, que piense en los retos que tenemos a nivel global, pero que aplique y haga soluciones en sus aspectos locales, desde sus territorios, ¿no? Con contextos específicos.
So we have to think of the global crisis with local solutions, with very specific context.
Y en ello es lo que estamos trabajando desde Guardianes por la Vida, el movimiento que hace un momento mencionaba, un movimiento que busca incentivar la educación ambiental, que está formando a 700 niños en diversos procesos en Colombia, y que fue el que yo inicié pues junto a mis compañeros, y pues eso.
So this is what we're trying to do with Guardianes por la Vida, Guardians for Life, the movement that I've been speaking about, he's been speaking about, where we have been training about 700 kids. He started this with other colleagues in Colombia, and now there are about 700 kids who have been trained into climate education.
Y pues de hecho podemos poner ya el video.
So we can show a short video so you see how it started.
Universo que alberga vida. Les pido que como senadores de la República sean gobiernos y senadores que legislen para la... Lo importante es la educación, porque se cultivan los valores y ahí las personas empiezan a tomar conciencia, empiezan a cuidar el planeta Tierra. Todos podemos ser guardianes. pues frente a la situación tan grande, esto que hemos hecho es lo que podemos aportar, un poquito más de...
Y pues eso era un poco lo que les hablaba sobre Guardianes por la Vida. Un movimiento que busca transmitir y generar ecoesperanza y eco-hope en las nuevas generaciones, en las generaciones del presente y del futuro, es decir, mi generación.
So this is a movement that was built, as you saw, to try and create eco-hope in the current generations and the ones that are coming, so my generation.
También, de hecho, hace un par de meses iniciamos una iniciativa que es la Declaración de la Ecoesperanza, una declaración que busca reivindicar, que busca proponer, ¿sí?, y plantear una serie de peticiones, de exigencias, garantías para nuestros derechos, educación climática, ciudadana y ambiental, así como también espacios reales para la participación e incidencia de las voces jóvenes.
So this is also why a couple of months ago we created a declaration of Eco Esperanza, Eco Hope. It's an initiative that tries to give some guidelines and directions for climate education for children, for citizen education, and for what else? I forgot, sorry.
Climática y ambiental.
Wait. So environmental education. Sorry.
Queremos que como niños, como jóvenes, se nos escuchen. Los niños tenemos mucho que decir, no estamos vacíos por dentro y creo que, bueno, François, con él he podido conversar bastante sobre ello. Tenemos mucho que aportar, tenemos ideas y energía para transformar el mundo.
So, as children, not only we have rights, and I've been able to speak to François a lot about it, how we are actually empowered and full of energy to give lots to the world. So we are ready for this.
Y tal vez, además de la situación que suena tan negativa a muchos, no solo a los jóvenes, sino incluso a adultos, puede que les genere un poco de ecoansiedad, es decir, de incertidumbre, nervios, una serie de sentimientos, ciertos, algunos sentimientos que los llevan a la inactividad.
So because the situation is so negative and it sounds so hard sometimes and heavy, even for adults, it can create this feeling of eco-anxiety that mainly sometimes leads to inactivity, inaction.
Y por eso es que proponemos la ecoesperanza. Para definirla, la ecoesperanza es una esperanza basada en la acción, una esperanza que se traduzca o que signifique acciones y compromisos en nuestro día a día y en nuestro actuar más cercano.
So to define eco-hope, it's hope that translates into action in everyday's life and that gives us movement also to change the situation.
Y para cambiar esta situación, también creemos un poco en la importancia de pensar, de repensar, de reestructurar la manera en que nos relacionamos con la tierra. La situación actual finalmente es la consecuencia de un modelo de producción y consumo que no ha tenido unas relaciones armoniosas con la naturaleza y con el planeta.
So to start with that, we also think that thought has a very important place on it. How we relate, how as humans we are related to nature. How we can think about system change, about how we are relating to resources and what we're doing out of nature.
Y de hecho no solo respecto al medio ambiente, sino en general respecto a la vida, ¿sí? Eco, y ayer también lo hablábamos con François, eco se refiere a nuestro hogar, al lugar en donde vivimos, es al lugar en donde estamos. No hay otro planeta, no hay planeta B que nos dé las posibilidades que este nos da. Debemos cuidarlo, amarlo, proteger la vida que hay en él.
So this is not only about climate, but this is also about life. And if we relate to the planet as something that has life, we know that there is no other planet. There is no planet B. So we need to love it, cherish it, protect it.
Y es un poco una manera de pensar muy interesante, ¿no? Pensar en nuestro planeta como un solo planeta, como el único, primero, en el universo, pero también como un solo planeta, me refiero sin fronteras. Un planeta que tanto el clima como las acciones que tomemos no comprenden de fronteras.
So we can also think about the planet in a very interesting way. A planet without borders. Everything that happens on one side of the planet affects the other, and it's not only about climate, but it's also about humans. So we should think of a planet with no frontiers, no borders.
Es un poco, de hecho, lo que nos plantea el Papa Francisco en su encíclica de Laudato Si, que es una casa común, ¿sí? Un lugar en donde todos convivimos, finalmente en donde estamos bajo una misma atmósfera y sobre una misma tierra, que es la que debemos proteger.
It's also a little bit as Pope Francis tells us about a common house, a common home that we should protect and where we all live.
Y es también, creo, a lo que se refiere el concepto de planeta ciudadano. Nosotros como jóvenes, y bueno, todos, no solo los jóvenes, todos, sin importar la edad, pues estamos en un mismo planeta y cada uno, sin importar la edad, sin importar nuestra religión, lo que creamos, de donde seamos, podemos marcar la diferencia y hacer un cambio. Podemos empoderarnos y alzar nuestras voces, que es lo más importante.
So it's not only Pope Francis bringing it in Laudato Si, I have forgotten that, but also people like François who have made the concept of planetism, and then where we are all living the same planet and we can do something about it all together, no matter where we are from, but we are just citizens of a planet, not only citizens of a town or a country.
Eso sí, haciendo la aclaración de que todos tenemos una responsabilidad, pero no es la misma. Es decir, el término de la justicia climática, que se refiere a individuos, tanto a individuos como a naciones. Es decir, hay naciones que por supuesto emiten muchos más gases de efecto invernadero que otras y tienen mayor responsabilidad.
So I just need to clarify that we all have a responsibility, but we do not have all the same responsibility. When we speak about loss and damage, we have countries that are emitting more greenhouse gases than others. So we have to think about climate justice as something with different degrees of responsibility too.
Así que para ir concluyendo, simplemente miremos hacia el futuro para poder seguir haciendo cambios con ecoesperanza y defendiendo nuestros derechos. La crisis climática es también una crisis de derechos humanos y necesitamos reivindicar nuestro derecho humano a un ambiente sano, limpio y digno, que es lo más importante. Así que con ecoesperanza, hacia adelante.
So we actually need to think about this with eco-hope. We need to, just repeat that again, please.
Con ecoesperanza,
Yes.
seguir mirando hacia adelante.
That's it. And we need to look into the future. We need to look at it with eco-hope so we can have a clean, healthy, and dignified world for all.
Exactamente. Gracias. Thank you so much. Vamos.
He's gonna ask something.
Gracias. Gracias también a Jimena, ¿no? A ti también. Gracias, un gusto. Gracias. Gracias. Thank you.
We have time for one question. You talked beautifully. You know, everyone was amazed, I guess, as much as I was. You talked about human rights as well as environmental rights. You talk about eco-esperanza, eco-hope. Why wouldn't that be a new human right? Maybe the first planet citizens' right. Maybe the first right that would be written by children for the planet. Because even the Children's Declarations of Rights has been written by adults. It started 100 years ago. We are about to celebrate it next year. So can we have the first series of rights written by children for the next generations? What would there be?
Bueno, yo considero que creo que como idea y como propuesta podríamos hablar pues de un derecho de la ecoesperanza, ¿sí? De nuevo mencionando este término. Todas las crisis actuales creo que nos han quitado la posibilidad de soñar, ¿sí? Eso es responsabilidad, por supuesto, de las generaciones pasadas, pero no hay que resentirnos y hablar con rabia. Por el contrario, hay que construir en miras hacia el futuro.
So, this, I've already spoken about eco-hope, but then we can speak about eco-hope as a right. Children should have the right to eco-hope. And as all crises have taken away our opportunity to dream, we need to do it with something, so it should be with this right. But we shouldn't keep this feeling of having been taken that away, but just act and be able to hope as children.
Así que un derecho con ecoesperanza para construir paz, igualdad, para construir hermandad, para construir una sociedad que incluya las voces de todos, de los niños, de las mujeres, que no nos encierren en paradigmas y en estructuras simples. Todos podemos cambiar el mundo.
So we should be able to build a society that brings us peace, fraternity, equality, a society that lets us build it all together, and that we can all actually act. I think I forgot the last part.
Yeah, there was also brotherhood and sisterhood.
Yeah.
Hermandad is both.
Yeah, a society with lots of different rights, not only for children, but also for women and any kind of diversity. And it's a society for all. For all.
You may be a dreamer, but you're not the only one.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Gracias, François. Un gusto. Gracias. Thank you so
Merci,
much.
So good luck to the next panelist. I warned them in advance, you know, but you know, recovering from this is going to be. We'll have a little transition. We'll have a little jingle to help you come on stage and recover from this. You know, clearly, what can we do to hear his call? That's the basic question that I think all of us have heard, but I think especially the three panelists and the ones that come after, I think that, you know, indeed, can we, like Francisco's mothers and parents and teachers, bring the joy, energy, and hope in that generation? Can we train them to be the leaders of the future? Can we just serve this generation and their transformation and listen to them and co-construct the future with them like the Secretary General of the United Nations has invited us? Thank you. Good luck. Have a seat. So we'll start with you, if you don't mind. I warned you in advance. You can have a mic, and you have the joy of being with kids of Francisco generation daily, and you're already, fostering their agency, a word that is not very common in France, as we discussed, their ability to become author and actor of their own future. So can you tell us about the way it happens in your school and the way you resonate with what you've just heard?
Yes, so I work in a school where we actually try to do what Francisco just told us, which is to assess a global issue in a local way. And so at the school, what we are trying to do is not only just teach the children, but actually do it with them. If you just talk about global issues and about climate change, but don't do anything about it, then it just won't work. So that's what we try to do at the school. And we also try to help them to actually take charge of it. So they really participate in the school life. For instance, I don't know, there is one children responsible for the waste management and everything like this. So they are really actors in this. And yeah, they can also have their own ideas, bring it to the table. And yeah, we really work together with them and not just in a hierarchical way. And yeah, I think that would be the main points.
Thank you, Maïlys. Lennart, you may want to bounce back because you are helping not only Maïlys, but a huge network of teachers that care for the planet and want to make a difference.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do I turn this on? First of all,
I
want to say my highest respect to Francisco and thank him for sharing his optimism and his passion with all of us. And I also want to say that we need quality climate education so that in tomorrow's world, youth like Francisco can live in, thrive in fundamentally transformed societies. That's the whole point of climate education. And I think what Maïlys just shared and her work as a teacher is really a great illustration of that climate education that we need in schools all over the world. So my name is Lennart Kuntze. I work for Teach for All as the Global Head of Climate Education and Leadership. And I would love to just understand what the audience knows. Could I get a quick show of hands of who has ever heard of Teach for All? Great. Who's ever heard of Les Choix d'École in France? Okay, it's great to see. So Teach for All, we are a global network of 60 independent national organizations that all do the same thing. They all recruit young professionals and graduates to train them and then send them to spend 2 years of teaching in their own nation's most underprivileged communities. And then with this foundation, many of the so-called fellows, after the 2 years, go on to spend their whole lifetime working towards educational equity. And they do that like Maïlys as teachers, so they do that through innovation or through school leadership or through educational policy. And of course, climate education is a huge part of that. So my very fortunate role is that I work with a network of right now 13,000 educators over the world and about 90,000 alumni from the 60 countries all over the world to try to equip them with what it takes to teach about climate change in their own schools and classrooms. I want to say a few quick things to just get everybody on the same page of why are we talking about climate education? Why do we need to talk about it? There's a story in 6 parts, and it's a bit of a tragedy. The first part is climate change is already the lived reality of children all over the world. There's over 1 billion children all over the world that live in extreme danger of the effects of climate change. The second is that this is having devastating effects on children's future, and it's having devastating effects on their current education. Only in 2020, there was 37 million children that couldn't enjoy an education because of the impact of climate change. Climate change is the highest driver of forced migration these days. The third thing is kids know that. We talked about this. We heard Francisco speak about it. Children understand this very well, and they want things to happen. Climate change is the top priority on their mind, and they said they feel sad, they feel anxious, And they also feel like they want to know what is happening, what can we all do in this. The fourth thing is schools aren't teaching about climate change and sustainability in most cases. There was a study that analyzed 100 global national curricula, national school curricula, and out of 100 national school curricula, only 53 only made mention of climate change or environmental sustainability. Mention even of it. And that means that in schools, it's really not taking place to the degree that it needs to take place. And there's another fifth point to this, which is teachers don't feel ready to talk about climate change in their classrooms. There was a study of 58,000 teachers that said 95% of teachers want to teach about climate change. Only 40% of teachers feel ready to teach about climate change. And then there's a sixth point to it, which is there's very strong forces that keep the status quo in place, which is strong lobbies that just don't want children to learn about this. And there's also very limiting mindsets. There's a mindset that the teacher has to know everything before being able to stand up in front of a class and teaching about climate change. And we have to change that. We have to address these sort of root causes of why climate change isn't being taught in school.
Thank you, Lennart. Megan, we've heard a young wizard. I would describe you, if you don't mind, as an alchemist, transforming anxiety into hope. Can you tell us the magic behind it?
Certainly. Is that on? There. I want to also thank Francisco so much for muchas gracias por todos que haces. Gracias. I have to also say that I'm very much about normalizing the emotions that come with climate change and how we process the information when we hear about it. And so often we shed tears that are very sad and grief and not the tears that we want to shed. But today I was able to shed hopeful tears thanks to you. So, gracias. One of the things that we know about the climate crisis is that it's very difficult for people to process the information about it. Scientists have been banging their heads against the wall because they work on the information deficit model in the sense that you know what the problem is, you know what to do about it, but it's that middle section that falls out. And that's why psychology can be really helpful, because it can help people connect to the narratives and to the identity and to the emotion that actually drives that change for the long run. So by helping children through education develop their identity within this as a community, in a school, there's a great opportunity to foster that sense of ability to take action, but in a way that's sustainable for young people and is not going to lead to that burnout, to that anxiety, but it's going to lead to that hope, that motivation, and optimism. So we do that by training teachers to foster containment when they teach education, to help learners become active communicators so that they can influence their systems around them, their parents, their grandparents, their carers. And by doing that, it actually brings the whole community into play. And I think that that's so important. It was wonderful to see you bringing in your group. You know, it starts with a spark, and that spark can set fire, and it's amazing.
Thank you. That's very moving. Maïlys, I guess it's not always easy for the young people around you to deal with their own emotions. And France is not the country where social emotional intelligence has been fostered the most. How do you combine, you know, emotional intelligence and climate intelligence, the ability to not be a victim of what happens, but, you know, an actor and an author of the future?
Yes, that's a big issue, and as you mentioned, it's also something that first we have to deal with as the adults, and then we can try to help the children as well to go through this. And I think one of the main way to manage it is to take action, as you mentioned, and as Francisco is doing, because yeah, that's a great way to feel hope, to be part of something, to try to make the change that you want to see. So I think that's a big thing. And then there is also, it's important to not forget to do other activities. I think you mentioned art maybe earlier when we were talking, and other way to express themselves and to find, to deal with their anxiety and.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about art. I was yesterday at UNESCO on art education panel, and most of art education is to know about art of the past. But what about using art as therapy, or at least as cathartic abilities to express sadness or tough emotions, and be again an alchemist, transforming those difficult moments into something that is beautiful? I think, you know, there is some magic about art. I don't know, how do you practice this in your class, or maybe the two of you want to react on this because you might know of other ways of doing this. Maïlys, you want to start?
On how we practice it?
Yeah.
So we try to foster the creativity of the children. So we try to incorporate it in many subjects, and yeah, we always encourage them to express themselves, and we have sometimes special workshops where they can draw or paint or have manual activities. And
their art piece relate to those situations of climate anxiety or something?
It really depends. Sometimes we also try to work specifically on feelings and emotions, but sometimes it can be other subjects. But in any way, we try to give them this tool to be able to draw and.
Megan?
I think art is a wonderful vehicle for expressing emotions that sometimes either are difficult for young people to name, or older people for that matter. We tend to run on happy, sad, glad, mad, and that's kind of it. And so actually giving space for children to connect also with empathy, because I think there's a lot of potential for empathy in artwork in this subject. So one thing that we do is we ask the children to draw a picture of the earth and describe, or whether through art or through words around it, how we think the earth feels. And then that often leads to them expressing, actually, I do feel that sadness that this is happening to me. And I do feel this hope because I see the activism that's happening around. And so I think by, you know, there's been some wonderful dance movements that have happened here. I think there's in music, it's really hit the pop culture lexicon as well. And so I think we're seeing it really make those cultural shifts that only art can really do. And I think it's a beautiful way to help express how we feel, but also it's an action in and of itself, which is very nice.
Lennart, given the numbers of teachers in your network, if all of the art produced by the kids in all of those classrooms were put together, we could have the first Planetism museum of, you know, art for the planet. How do you react to this?
Absolutely, we could. I would even probably make the scope of that broader. So I want to connect with something that Maïlys said, which is around the teacher mindset. At Teach for All, we have something called teaching as collective leadership, which in essence mean teachers as co-learners, students as leaders, and community as power. And this links to something that Francisco said, which is climate education is not an activity like tree planting. It's an approach, and it's an approach that is rooted in the local context of the community. And what the most powerful examples of climate education from our network do is a teacher at the beginning of the semester, together with the class, brainstorms on what are the key sustainability challenges of our own community. And then they're co-creating exactly what you mentioned in the beginning, François. They're co-creating, for example, they're developing soap from used cooking oil that they get from the school canteen, or they develop oyster mushrooms from coffee grounds, or they develop other things that could beautifully be displayed in such a museum.
Wonderful. I would like to go back to Francisco's proposal on Hope, or, you know, maybe a question for you, Maïlys, to begin with is, you're going to soon see your kids again. You know, what are you going to tell them about what you heard today?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that while I was listening to Francisco, and I will definitely talk about Francisco to them, and I'm very curious and excited to see their reactions, and I want to brainstorm with them on what they can do to join Francisco's movement, and to what eco-hope means to them, and yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting.
I'll go back to you, Lennart. How could you mobilize, or would you want to mobilize, you know, the Teach for All amazing network to invite the kids in their classrooms to start thinking about eco-hope and join the movement that Francisco is initiating?
Yeah, so I think we're approaching it in stages. So as I was introducing in the beginning, climate education is barely being addressed in schools. So what we've recently started together with Learning Planet Institute and with Aga Khan Foundation is a movement called Teachers for the Planet. So as a first step, what we're aiming to do is that we're building a community of teachers as well as organizations all around the world that are supporting teachers in getting climate ready. And we have 400 organizations and thousands of teachers within that community. And what we're also doing is that we're bringing out 100 climate education solutions that we see from different schools and different classrooms all over the world, and we make them accessible to inspire, to activate, to empower more teachers to do this work. Then I think the next step is that through all these teachers, we reach so many more students and we can connect students with each other, just like Francisco does, creating a movement of students who are demanding the right to echo hope and who are demanding the right to take agency on these issues.
Amazing. Megan, how would you transform what you already do, which is already amazing, after you've heard Francisco's call?
I think it's really important to, it's a good question. I think one thing that it's really important to be conscious of when we're encouraging children to take all these actions, it's also giving them permission to take the breaks that they need for their mental health, because we know that climate action can reduce climate anxiety, but it can also work to the effect of acting as a buffer, and that buffer can lead to burnout. And I've worked with lots of young people that are burning out, and they're the future leaders of tomorrow. We need to equip them with the resilience, and it's our position as psychologists and as we train teachers to help them understand that this will permeate every aspect of their life and all of their decisions, and it's important that they build robust self-care plans, that we foster that sort of ability for them to understand this isn't their fault. This is something that all the emotions that come with this are important and necessary, and we as adults and teachers need to do all that we can to give them the tools that they need.
Do you think that if there was, say, a new human right, the right for echo hope, written by children for the next generations, do you think that that would have an influence on the current level of anxiety that everyone suffers from, especially the young ones?
I think that these emotions, they come and they go and they change, and so there will be times where I'm sure Francisco's felt that anxiety, and that anxiety has led to that action, which has actually become hope. We were talking about how these difficult emotions like grief and anger and anxiety, they're difficult for us to process and hold for a long time. And if we try to take action based on those, we're going to burn out. We're going to feel overwhelmed, and that's where apathy and that those difficult things come into place that stop us from taking action. But if we can look to what's important, what our objects of care are from those signals that we're getting, those eco-anxiety, whether it's about social justice, or if it's about natural resources being depleted or biodiversity being threatened. When we can look at actually what matters to us, what's meaningful for us, we connect to different values and different emotions like love, guardianship, stewardship over nature, social justice. All of these, when we start to anchor in those places, that's where we're going to thrive, and that hope and that active hope where we need to stay. And so it's really important, I think, to move from those difficult emotions and anchor on to the ones that are actually going to give us longevity and resilience.
Wonderful. I think we have like 30 seconds each of you to conclude. So I'll start with you, Lennart, and I'll leave you the last word.
Okay, I think the one thing I want to say that we haven't addressed, it's linking to what Francisco said. This is all integrated. We're not talking about climate change as an insular issue. We're talking about something that's deeply integrated, and what we are trying to equip our teachers with is an integrated way of teaching about the issue in language, in biology, in geography, in the sciences, in arts. So how can students feel their own agency across all these different subjects? So it's an integrated world, and it's also an integrated sort of holistic kind of education that we need to get students climate ready.
Megan?
I think actively supporting children find their own path and their own journey in what they're good at, what they enjoy, and helping them to think about how they can make that impact go as far as possible, really nurturing their passions, and that's where they're going to, again, find that thriving place where they take their climate action.
Wonderful. Maïlys?
I would like to conclude by saying that I think that a main barrier is our belief system, and that often we think that it's not possible. And Francisco showed us that it's possible today, and at my school we are trying to show that it's possible each day to be more sustainable. And so we have to change our mindset and believe that we can actually change things.
Amazing. You've been fantastic. You know, after him, that was a very tough challenge, but you did it beautifully, so you've shown that it's possible, even though it looked impossible. You walked the talk. Thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank you. It's so nice to have teachers, adults that care and foster the next generation's culture of change and their will to make a difference. And I think that, you know, this intergenerational alliance is probably the best way forward. And we'll move now to a new session, and I'm going to invite Brian to come on stage. Satish is going to be online. Hopefully everything works. And we will be discussing the next stage, which is the university stage. You know, what can change in a university system to make sure that we can create that new generation of game changers. So good to see you online, Satish. I'm glad that systems work. I'll start with Brian.
Yes, and
welcome.
Pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure. I hope you had the chance to hear the previous panelists because they were quite amazing.
Yes, I have heard the whole thing, and I listened to Francisco, and I listened to all your three panelists, and you are organizing and facilitating it very well.
I'm doing my best, but let's start maybe with you, Brian. So, given your own background and history, you know, why are you here today? You know, why do you want to make a difference? You've done everything right according to the usual standards, but you still want to make more.
Yeah, thank you, François, and thanks everyone for being here, and thanks in particular to Francisco for catalyzing such a wonderful session. Yeah, I'm a physics professor, have been for many years, and I was then a president of a university for 10 years, from 2010 to 2020. Then I was put in charge of the vaccination program for COVID in Ireland, for the whole country. And then from last year, I'm now an advisor to Arizona State University, a university that I had developed a very close relationship with, but mainly because of their fantastic commitment to making a real difference in the area of sustainability and climate action. So why am I here? I'm here as a scientist, I'm here as a university leader, I'm here as a grandparent. We had our first grandchild last year. She's 1 year old last week, and I think 2023, if you look 2030, she'll be 8 years old, 2040, she'll be 18. What's she facing into? And I didn't realize the impact that would have on me. So the combination of all of those three means I want to spend the rest of my life doing as much as I can in terms of tackling the challenges ahead of us. And we heard in the last session really about the transformative power of education right across the continuum from early stage through primary, secondary, and now into third level, and the particular role that teachers have to play in that regard.
You want to be a good ancestors, which is very good news. I think, you know, all of us would like to learn how to do this. I think, Satish, you've done your share of trying to become a good ancestor as well, and I will be very happy to hear your own vision, because to some extent, Brian is trying to change university from inside. You decided to create a different model.
Yes, I am founder of Schumacher College, which is in England, Devon. And Schumacher College was established in 1991 because we felt that our education system ignores nature or uses nature only as a resource for the economy. And our educational system sees nature separate from humans, nature out there. The mountains, the forests, the rivers, the animals, the birds, and the seas and oceans are nature. And we humans are not nature. We humans are separate from nature. And not only we are separate from nature, we are above nature, superior to nature. And so we can do to nature what we like. We can use nature only as a resource for the economy, for making production, consumption, making profit, money. And this is a university system. And universities look at the young people and see as if young people have no body. They have no heart, no hands, no legs, only brain, only head, and half brain, because we have two hemispheres of the brain, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. Our educational system of the universities only teach the left hemisphere of the brain. So Schumacher College was established to challenge that. And we established Schumacher College to have an education of head, education of heart, and education of hands. Whole body education. Both brain, left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain. We need to educate both. And nature and humans are one. We are nature. Nature is not separate from us. And we are not above nature. We are not superior to nature. We are nature. And therefore we need to live with nature in harmony and look after nature. The cyclical nature of nature and human activity should be the same. So this is the purpose of Schumacher College, to challenge the university education system.
Fantastic. I saw Francisco that was echoing completely to what you just said. So it's nice to see that wisdom at every age resonates deeply in this session. I think that to have had the privilege to discuss with Michael Crow, that is the president of Arizona State University, he, I think, would have agreed with you, Satish, on many dimensions. He says basically, higher education believes they are part of the solution, and Michael says, no, they are part of the problem, because they've separated disciplines and bodies and nature, and to some extent it goes back very long, certainly to Descartes for the French responsibility into this, but already in the Athenian city, the city walls were separated the humans from nature, and the insiders from the outsiders. So the citizenship has not been an inclusive notion. It's not been an ecological notion. It's not been a holistic notion. And I think we need to reinvent this. And actually, we have to reinvent a big part of the Enlightenment. I think Gandhi was saying, when he was asked about Western civilization, he answered, that would be a good idea. Which is an interesting way of looking at what we've done. And so, how can we redesign this? Do you want to take that challenge?
Yes, indeed. I mean, that's why I'm here. The question is often asked, what are universities for? And while they're complex institutions, it really comes down to two things. One is they have the responsibility to create and disseminate knowledge. And secondly, they have the responsibility to foster the development of ethical, informed, educated people who can bring value to society. Okay, that's generic. But faced with the existential crisis that faces us, faced with the catastrophe that's potentially ahead of us, universities have a pivotal role to play in all of this. And they have to realign, redesign their focus, their purpose, their mission on this. And in terms of empowering and educating future change makers and leaders like Francisco, creating knowledge to tackle the problems that face us, acting as exemplary institutions that foster change in society, because people will follow what universities do, thought leadership that will influence governments and policy development. All of those things are part of what universities need to do, all targeted on tackling the major challenges ahead of us. I mean, the biggest privilege one has in a university is to engage with young people and to be part of their formative education. And young people are ahead of us, as we're seeing here, in their thinking about this. And that's why, if you take curricula, need to change, to embrace all of this awareness and to empower the young people to have the knowledge that enable them to tackle the issues, to change society around them.
Thank you so much. You know, talking about redesigning curricula with young people, I think there is an interesting perspective that we were discussing with Francisco yesterday. The Friday for the Future movement shows that, you know, the youth want a change quite clearly. But when you talk to these young activists, you say, I love what you do on Fridays, but what do you do for the rest of the week? You know, what about a university that will foster their agency and their ability to make a difference to the world the whole week, rather than, you know, they have to choose between, you know, being an activist or being a student that behaves in the classical curricula. I don't know which of the two of you want to react to this first. Satish, do you want to give it a try?
Yes, I will be happy to. I think Fridays for the Future is a very good start. But our universities are too entrenched in the traditional economic model. Our university educations are egocentric. Personal success, getting good job, big money, prestige, power, control, all that. And we need to change this egocentric education to eco-centric education. You have to change from G to C, from ego to eco. When our Fridays for the Future movement and Greta Thunberg and all the other hundreds of thousands of people all around the world marching, I think they are asking for an eco-centric education and not egocentric education. That is their demand. And 1 day a week is a good start, because they, after all, they have to go to school and university because they can't do. But I would like to see universities changing because of this Fridays for the Future movement and demand from the young people. And every university should have a farm and a garden where young people can learn to grow food and use their body and look after nature, plant trees, plant gardens, and learn how we can have a cyclical economy. At the moment, our economy is not economy, it's a money-nomy. We call it economy, but it's a management of money and not management of the ecosystem. And so an economy and ecology should go together. Without ecology means knowledge of planet and ecosystem. And economy means management of the planet and ecosystem. At the moment, we don't teach our children what is ecosystem and how are they going to manage what they don't know. And so ecology and economy must go together. And it should be practiced. So I would like to see every university, every school, every college having a garden, having a farm, having some work where children can learn skills. And also love is very important. At the moment, we see nature as an inanimate object to manipulate. I want to have seeing nature as a living organism, Gaia, living organism, deep ecology, living organism, and love for nature. That's a heart quality. Without that transformation of universities, universities are part of the problem. They are not part of the solution. They are causing climate change. Highly educated people from Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, these are the people who are causing climate change. They are culprits of our problems. They are part of the problem. And I think we have to abolish this kind of egocentric education and make ecocentric universities. And that's the demand of the Fridays for the Future and Greta Thunberg. She mentions no words. She says all these universities are blah, blah, blah. And I think we have to listen to her.
Follow that. Let's say I don't agree with everything that Satish has said. I agree with some of it. Change is required. But let me tell you what we're actually doing. And we're not blah-blahing. We're actually doing something about it. So the University Design Institute that I work with at ASU is working closely with François and his team, the Learning Planet Institute here. And we're developing solutions for universities around the world. So I would disagree with you, Satish, in your characterization of the system, because the university leaders we talk to in the global north and the global south all want to do something, but many don't know how. So the work we are doing with Learning Planet Institute is to develop solutions that are place sensitive, that are culturally sensitive, that give them a pathway and a trajectory. Much of that is around what you talked about, the curriculum itself, and how you sensibly infuse sustainability awareness, ecology awareness into all disciplines right across the curriculum. It's not easy. Mind you, I picked up some very good ideas here and talking to Kate Raworth about around the donut economics, which you could very easily infuse right across, and principles of climate justice as well. I met with Sully Test here as well, who are developing assessments for students to see what is their climate and ecological awareness in a way that you can benchmark and measure and so on. So there's lots to do, and that's just about curriculum. Across research and innovation, across thought leadership, across student empowerment and engagement, many things to do. But we are coming up with the solutions. You can't just say do away with the university system. You have to provide the system with solutions that allow it to transform itself, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, the dilemma between revolution and evolution. As a French evolutionist, I'm quite familiar with the two concepts, and I like to see the two sides of the same coin. And it's true that, you know, it's tempting to create something radically different, but it's also very useful to transform the existing, which is the dominating force as we speak. I want to go back maybe to etymology. Because, you know, you made a nice point. Ecology and economy come from eco, which comes from oikos. And oikos was the Greek for the house and the community that live in the house and the home. But historically, the paterfamilias, you know, the father of the house, had all the power there. Okay, the wife had very little power, if any. The children even less, not to talk about the slave or of the animals and the living beings that were living in that home. So if we take that historical glance, you know, clearly the Greek inspired the Enlightenment that inspired today, but, you know, we've reinvented several times the same concept of democracy, citizenship, science, philosophy, art and culture in the Western world. But you have an Eastern perspective on these things, and that's why, you know, I'll be happy to hear, you know, the way you propose a more holistic perspective than the one that, you know, we have separated in silos in many different disciplines and many different universities.
Yes, I think the ethos, Greek word home, in the wisdom of the Greek philosophers, home is not only where you have your bedroom, bathroom, and living room. Home is our whole planet Earth. Ecosystem is a whole planet Earth. So our planet Earth is our home, and the birds flying in the sky are our brothers and sisters. The animals in the forest are our brothers and sisters. We have all come from nature. At the time of the Big Bang, there were no human beings. So all natural world is our ancestors. We have all come from nature. And therefore, ecos, the Greek word oikos or ecos, is the whole planet is our home, and all members of the species of every kind are all our members of one family. And that is the Eastern and Western coming together. And in the Eastern philosophy, and Indian philosophy, and Taoist philosophy, we say entire cosmos is my country. Not only France is my country, or England is my country, or India is my country, or China is my country, but the whole cosmos is my country. That cosmic mind, the magnanimous mind, is ecology. And then we say planet is our home. In Indian philosophy, we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole planet is my family and my home. And then we say the nature is my nationality. I'm not just an Indian, I'm a natural being. Nature means, you said about etymology, nature means birth, natal, native, nation, they all come from the birth. So place of birth is native. And so nature is my nationality, and love is my religion. I'm not a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Jew. I'm a human being with love in my heart, and all the other religions come later. So religion is my love. That's the Eastern philosophy. Cosmos is my country. Planet is my home, nature is my nationality, and love is my religion. In that context, ecology is a very beautiful word. And economy is a very beautiful word, but we have mistreated these two words, particularly economy. What means moneynomy? We manage money and we call it economy. The economy is not economy. It's a complete misuse of the word. Economy means management of the whole planet Earth, and whole planet is our home, and all species are our brothers and sisters. We are all interrelated, we are all interconnected, and we cannot destroy, we cannot pollute ocean with plastic if the ocean is our home. And we cannot create global warming if the whole planet is our home. So Western societies have seen nature only as a resource for making money, nothing else. They see nature nothing other than making money, profit, means to an end. The end goal is making more money, more profit, more production, more consumption. That has to change, and universities are part of that problem. All the great universities are producing people who are going to exploit nature. Our British scientists say, go out and steal the secrets of nature. That's what universities are teaching. So universities are entirely part of the problem, and they have to really revolutionize the educational system. Evolution is too slow. We need love revolution. We need eco-revolution now.
Thank you, Satish, for your forceful words. Brian, you'll have the last word.
So many answers, so little time. I agree again with some of what you say. I think in the broad spectrum of universities that are out there, some want to go the full distance to become what you might call ecological universities, and that term is out there, but not all will. And I think what's important is that we need to respond to the reality.
They should, they will not, but they should. Unless they should, they are part of the problem.
You may be right, Satish, but they won't. And I think we have to face the reality of making change urgently over the next decade.
But then I want you to challenge them. You can't say, we won't, so we give up. No, challenge them. You are the professor there. Why are you just sitting there not challenging them?
Yeah,
stop what you are doing.
One could spend a lot of energy.
And creating global warming. Change as soon as you can.
So, yeah, I was supposed to be a moderator, so I might endorse that role, but it's Brian.
You will not be getting your check at the end of it. Okay. Final sentence, our time is up, but let me say, from my perspective and the response we're getting from universities, we need to enable universities to empower the next generation of change makers and leaders in the way you're talking about, Satish. They need to influence governments by evidence-based policy making and influence society by their own behavior. They need to create knowledge in the areas where we're facing the technological challenges, which they can do. And they need to drive innovation at a scale and a speed that allows us to tackle the impending disaster that's facing us. So speed and scale and urgency are the key developments. We don't have time to do this massive change of the system itself. We need to change from within and provide universities with the tools to tackle these problems. And as I say, most of the universities we encounter are very, very enthusiastic about doing this, but they need the assistance in enabling them to do it. But ultimately, it's about the students. And the biggest lesson I learned as a university president was students coming through are now choosing their careers not based on salaries or money, but based on values. And students will start to choose universities based on their ecological values and based on their commitment to true climate change and climate action. And I think they have the power to make that change by their choices. But I think that's what we will start to see as the system changes from within.
Thank you so much to both of you. I think we've been over time by 1 minute, so I will stop the conversation here, unfortunately. I think it could go on for ages. And Satish, feel welcome to come to Paris. We'll be happy to discuss this further. Thank you so much to both of you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Bye, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm supposed to wrap up this session. Wow. Clearly, we heard a lot of energy and wisdom from different ages and different perspectives as well. Clearly, we need a change, and this change will not succeed if not built intergenerationally. We need to hear you know, your generation's voice, Francisco. What's interesting in the word generation is that there is generate, and you're here to generate the future. Okay, every generation is supposed to do that. That's what it means. Okay, and there is another Greek word I love, which is poiesis, which is the same for generation. Okay, it's the one for creativity. It's the one for poetry. It's the one for creation of the future. Interestingly, in biology, we use it. So I think Satish would like this word as well, because it's autopoiesis. It's what defines life, the ability to generate oneself. And I think, you know, every generation will generate their own future. What the previous generation can do is maybe help co-construct that future. And that's, I think, what we as adults, teachers, educators can help, is listen to you and your generation and co-construct a future that you would want. So, you know, how can we empower you, develop your agency even further, not only for you because you're already, you know, very high on that scale, but for, you know, the 1.5 billion kids on this planet. You know, how can we hear all those voices, and how can every educator, every school, every university, every minister of education hear your voices and your will to make a difference, and your will to be educated differently in order for you to be able to make a difference. You know, yesterday I learned a very beautiful African concept. It's the idea that every one of us at birth inherits a needle. And what this needle is for is to weave in the links, okay? And they claim that if you lose that needle, then that's the end of the passing of generation, because the tapestry of life will be broken unless it's woven in every time. And, you know, I think, you know, everyone here will soon go, but I hope that you will go with that needle. And that you would have met interesting people here, and those links should be woven together in order to build the future tapestry of life. And remember, if you're good at weaving, you can weave even a flying carpet, which is, you know, ecologically much better than planes. Okay, so I think, you know, we can dream of alternatives like this and use poesis, poetry, art, culture, and imagination to invent new narratives for the future. And thank you so much. It was such a privilege to have this amazing panelist, and allow me to say a special thanks to you, Francisco, because that was absolutely amazing, mind-blowing. Thank you so much to all of you.